Pegasus from the Wise Guys, along with the homie Armin, back at it again with another video to talk about the Kashtira archetype, this time to talk about all the builds that exist right now. This is a basic combo you need to know. Alrighty guys, so in getting on to the points that I wanted to make very quickly, in this second edition of the video, I basically wanted to just go over a lot of the level 7s that you definitely would have to comb through if you were looking at all of these. There's definitely a lot more that could be listed, in my opinion. But as far as getting into that, Buster Blader was a card that came to mind simply because, you know, one of my closest friends plays Buster Blader, and that is a definite level 7 that you would have to look at. However, them being able to spam out onto the field as easily as other decks just isn't going to happen. As far as cards that can spam very easily and will definitely matter, inside of a meta where Bestial is definitely going to take over, Chaos Hunter can become very prevalent, and inside of certain events, I would highly recommend a build, which I'll show in a second, that would be featured around Chaos Hunter because it's the most powerful level 7 basically in the game, in my opinion. You obviously have stuff like Pankratops and the Mega Knights are really powerful, but Chaos Hunter is extremely powerful. As far as getting into the rest of these, you guys know about the Kashtiras that just dropped and what they do. In case you don't, obviously Fenrir searches monsters, and that being alongside cards like Side Beasts are just insane combos, which we'll show. And then obviously here with the rest of them, Kashtira Ogre grabbing a trap, Unicorn grabbing the spell to be able to kind of loop your plays on and off the field very smoothly. Kashtira has basically opened the door for all of the rest of these monsters, the Kaiju, Sticky String, as well as the multi-dimensional Kaiju, Radiant. They both are level 7s. Obviously you guys know about Pankratops. Mirador is a very interesting card which we can talk about because basically it's a Ghost Mourner in a body type of form onto the field. And it says the activation and effects of this card's effects cannot be negated, therefore it can't be blocked. And if your opponent special summons a monster with 2,000 or more attack from the extra deck, you get to special summon this out onto the field. Now obviously that's kind of dependent on what your opponent does. And there's obviously more to that card, but definitely dropping a level 7 onto the field like that is very smooth as well. Obviously, I wanted to mention before we go on about Grand Radiance. It is also a very interesting card that allows you to basically jump stuff out on the field and then trigger, which is very interesting. Tributing on your opponent's turn. If this card is normal or special summon from the hand, you can make your opponent banish the top cards of their deck face down equal to the number of cards in their hand. Then they shuffle their hand into the deck, and if they do, they add the cards banished from that effect to their hand. So basically it's doing what Trickstar Reincarnation does in a backward style of way. However, that triggers Shangri-La, which is really interesting. So that may be a card, but I felt like every time I tested it, it was extremely win more, in my opinion. Moving on, I wanted to talk about Gizmek Uka. Gizmek Uka, the festive fox, don't say that 5 times fast. It also is dependent upon what your opponent does. Therefore, a lot of these cards just fall by the wayside for me. That's just my opinion. As far as cards that you can definitely initiate some of the gameplay with, you have stuff like Alistair. Alistair is a level 4. However, when you normal summon him and then get to Invocation, then use Invocation, you get a card like Purgatrio, which is a level 7. I was kind of mind blown when I noticed that when I was kind of doing some play testing and studying through the library. But that definitely is a thing as well, and I definitely have a variant to feature that as well. Obviously, moving on, I'm not a Dragon Link player. However, a lot of the stuff inside of Dragon Link is also level 7. But a lot of the people that I think would want to try something like this out will not be trying that out because, well, let's face it, Bestial alongside of the Dragon Link stuff already is so ignorant, you're not going to spend any time with any of this. Just calling it what it is. However, you can have some plays with Punisher and the Rocket stuff, and you know, it is what it is. You may want to try that out. Angel 07 is kind of an interesting card. Dark Smorg is extremely interesting because, well, if you sided this and you can get to a Unicorn and then normal summon without tributing into a Samorg, and then maybe set an anti-spell, your opponent's locked out of spells and traps very quickly. That's almost as smooth as Fluanderies can do it. As far as the rest of these are just obviously mix-in choices. You guys know about Dragon Maids. A lot of the Gaia stuff is all level 7s. Fusilia Dragon's probably a really interesting one if you wanted to focus a build around skill drain. Apex Avian, obviously, Fluanderies player, you probably already knew this. Mermails, blah. The Mech Knights, Yellow Star and Red Moon are both level 7. That's a definite note you need to take advantage of. Yamada Dragon was a fascinating card. Very old card, like a 15-year-old card that if it lands, you get to draw 5. and much more. A lot of this stuff is like, you know, like the 10 year won't matter because that would conflict so hard that won't matter at all. But you could like make an Omega to move out of the way if you're using that engine, but that's bricky and weird. Obviously, you guys know about the adventure stuff. And then last but not least, a side frame build is really interesting as well, and that's because the trap card banishes stuff face down. Therefore, it would trigger Shangri-La. Now I'm moving on to the list, and this last little bit is the Starry Night stuff. If you want to play Crooked Cook and you're playing Astro Kribo, would become twice as powerful in a deck like that because, well, if you can get to a Starry Night card on the field and make your opponent play around something like a Crooked Cook and they don't have an answer or something, hey, I'm just saying, if they're not playing Kaijus, that's their fault because you should be inside of a format like this with Shangri-La. Getting in the list, obviously, this is the one that I'm playing pretty consistently right now. It's usually 40. I just fell in love with the combo with the Arsenal, which is down here, which basically says you get to special summon out the Wind Barrier statue. It's really stupid and really free. As far as my list though, Astro Kribo maybe could cut down to 1 because it does get kind of dumb because you're locked in the numbers. So then you're kind of stuck into only going into the number monsters like 76, like number 11, like number 89. But as far as the rest of it, most of the time you're going into those anyway, so it won't matter that much. However, I just, you know, it's kind of But Titanic Moth can be extremely important in time, so, you know, Astro Kribo's Astro Kribo. It's a really powerful choice as far as level 7 extension. As far as the rest of the deck, it's kind of, you know, finding as many good level 7s that you can play that don't conflict with a card like Shifter, and that's where cards like Danger Dogman being a level 7, Danger Nessie being a level 7, Destrudo isn't a level 7, well, it is a level 7, but it isn't going to be a level 7 most of the time. The reason why I'm playing it is because of Psy Beast, because it can then turn into a Black Rose, which is a level 7. That's why I'm doing that. That's just kind of my option right now, and it is a level 7 if you do open Unicore and the Kashtira Birth. So that's just something I'm kind of messing around with. Is pretty much my build right now. I definitely love a lot of cards. Like a Spellbound card is insane. I'm still trying to find where it can fit in for me. Phantasme is obviously a level 7, and the rest of these, you guys know what all of these cards do. It went over in my deck profile. It'll be listed at the end of this video if you haven't. I definitely remember, shout out to Captain Headass, aka Michael. He obviously had this card, Doom Rider, mentioned as well. But then moving on to some other builds, this is just ideas to mess around with. If you really wanted to go a hard kaiju build, I kind of harkened back to what Zoo was doing when it would go second. Maybe you want to try that out. That's just little different stuff to try out. And don't forget Fog King is a level 7, in case you ever forgot that. Really stupid. However, in testing, it doesn't quite shut down the decks you want it to, the way that you want it to. In theory, it's pretty good though. The punk version, really fascinating as well. Not necessarily because you're trying to go directly into any of the normal punk plays. It's just about getting kind of to a riser a little bit quicker, or a Chen Ying in a way a little bit quicker, and just being able to get to power plays a lot faster, and then having a card like Punisher in your deck is just silly. And then mixing in the adventure stuff. The adventure stuff is really bricky for me. I'm not a big fan of it. However, Illegal Knight, Griffin being level 7s, obviously that's a thing. And you're going to have more of an engine inside of the deck, so it won't be as dead, but it does get pretty bricky and pretty dead pretty quickly, which I don't necessarily like. This is one of my favorite builds, which is the Runic build. This is how I would play it right now. This is how I'm probably going to play it in real life coming up pretty soon. In this version, it kind of revolves around Chaos Hunter because on one end, I want to be able to block the Bestial stuff because Bestial stuff is really good and really annoying. However, this conflicts with Evenly a little bit. However, like if I draw one of these, I don't really care which one I draw. If I'm stopping you from going all the way off like that, I'm going to be in a good spot unless they get to that trap card that they can just tribute off of Bestial. But most of the time, like they're not going to get there before they can set any of that up. So that's where Chaos Hunter is really good. This is a really powerful build. I would highly recommend this one. And then the rest of it is just pretty much in as fast as way as possible. And I forgot to put Ash Blossom back in here because I was experimenting with something, but I would put Ash Blossom in this version simply to have a level 3 tuner that at any time you can turn into Baron. Obviously, I'd make this something else. There's a lot to tweak with a lot of this stuff. I did have a level 4 tuner that I was kind of experimenting with in here. Birdman is another card that you can experiment with as well if you don't like depending on drawing some of the hand traps, or you want another card that can do a little something for Chen Ying and Baron. That's why Birdman is a definite thing. But as far as the build itself, it's just really, really strong. You're gonna have to cut down on some of the runics. It just won't help you. Like the Allure card won't do anything in this version. However, it just becomes really, really dumb, really, really quick. This locks out the Bestials, and these run over pretty much any other monster in their deck. I definitely am working on a Fusilier Dragon build and a lot of the skill drain stuff. This is the last build that I wanted to show. A lot of these guys, again, are just under testing, so I'm not going to show everything because there's like stuff in the side that's really, really stupid. But in this version, really quick too, Eradicator and Chaos Hunter. That's dumb. But this version, and kind of rounding all of this out before we show in the combo video on the next video, is that Purgatrio, again, is a level 7. The Mech Knights are level 7s. Therefore, it was like, man, these create columns really easily because, you know, making level 7s easier like that creates a Shangri-La easier, and being able to get into specific cards like Birth to be able to create a column. I mean, it just happens really quickly, guys. Normal summoning Alistair and opening up any of this gets you to a level 7 and creates another column, even when you're going first. So again, guys, there's a lot to experiment with. We will have combos and a lot more information in the next video because there's a lot to cover in this deck. This is part 1 of part 2. This is like part 2A. Anyways, I'm out. Arrivederci. Pegasus out.